Hi everyone. So I'm here at the Expert Live chat, and my name is Madiha Ahmed. I'm a parent and youth mentor. I'm a teacher trainer. I work with the IIT Bombay and IIM Bangalore alumni startup called White Hat Junior, where I'm teaching coding to kids at the intermediate level. I'm also a mentor here at JobsforHer, and I love interacting with the women here. Having worked in different sectors, starting from biology to technology and also in communication and coding, I feel life has been really exciting and full of ups and downs. Dealing with challenges in different domains and working with different age groups, I've learned to see life like a juggling act, literally. And it is exciting because, yes, sometimes, during the juggling act, I focus on the ball. Sometimes I focus on the act itself. And sometimes I learn to focus on how to get the act better. So, since the topic is being a superwoman, I would just like to explain the term what superwoman means to me. Like, we think a superhero or a superwoman is someone who has to get it all right in the first shot, or have it all perfect and balanced and really no struggles in life. But honestly, that's not the case, because a lot of times we will have a lot of challenges. Like, for instance, there will be, like, times when you think you will have certain expectations from yourself or others, and you won't know how to kind of meet those expectations either from yourself or others. So let's start taking the questions. My first question is from Priyanka, who says, "Hi Madiha, why should one role suffer at the cost of another? Always available mom versus the part-time colleague." So, Priyanka, the question has two parts. Let me answer it in two different parts. So, the first part is the always available mom. I think we live in a time where our children, of course, at one end have that, even our husbands or our fathers or our family members have that expectation of us as women always being there for them. But at the same time, when we are always there for them, the other side that comes is we are not valued enough. So what happens is, a lot of times they say that, "Why are you always nagging me? Why are you always after me?" So there are two sides. The child who will come and say, "Mom, I want you, you're not always there for me," will also be the child who will say that, "I want my time, I want alone time, don't always be there around me." So I think at times we need to kind of really understand that always available mom is something that people might expect of us, but at the same time, meeting that expectation and living up to it also causes our value to go down. So you will not be that mom if you are thinking that always being available will make you the mom who will be loved and valued and appreciated by the family, by the children. That'll never happen. So the more, same thing with work. If you are someone who's always accessible to people, at one time your value goes down. You have to be approachable but not accessible. There's a difference here. Secondly, the part-time colleague. So let me break this into my interpretation and understanding of your phrase as a part-time colleague. So yes, when you're at a workplace, you also have, I think, certain expectations to meet from the colleagues, from the boss. Like, so for instance, if you're in a group, you always think that I want to help another female or another male who will at some point, maybe, either it's a good deed or you want something in return, when you'll be busy or you want help. So in that case, what happens is you will want to be there for them as well in that part time, let's say, work. So the best way to do it is to really get the basics right. So when you are at a workplace, we really think at times professional life is very different from personal life. It's not so. In some way or the other, the two will overlap. So the sooner we realize or find a way to deal with it, the better. So let's say when you are thinking that, yes, I have to be always available, and at this time maybe you can't work full time, so you're going for a part-time job. The best way to do it is to have maximum effective conversation rather than always connected. Now, what I mean here is this, that a lot of times we feel when you are, even with children, like let's take example at work and at home in this case, we feel it's always important to be connected, and good communication means always being connected, not having any differences, sharing whatever you feel. that will never happen. Because it can be that at this point of time you are ready to share everything and connect with another person, but that person might not be in the mood, or he or she may not be the person who can easily express or receive properly. So let's not focus on always being connected, but really focusing on whatever that moment of connection is, having a good connection at that point of time. So that I hope that answers your question. If not, you can again share another question on the Facebook Live or in the group. All right. Next question is from Kajal, who says, my question may very well be contrasting to the topic itself, but really, why do women have to be superwomen? It's unfair. Shouldn't we be talking about how everyone around her, spouse, child, society, peers, all just pool in equally to do their bit to make it possible for women to participate just as much? Then we wouldn't need women to become superwomen at all and burn out in their lives. What a great question, Kajal. I really love your question. So, again, when we look at the whole idea of a superwoman, I think your point is very valid, where let's think of an ideal society where everyone is doing their bit, so nobody has to be a superhero. But let's also be practical. Will that ever happen? It's rarely the case, because let's be practical. Even in a relationship, when we expect, let's say a husband-wife relationship, we expect a 50-50, that I'm your better half, so I contribute half, you contribute half. But chances are that half and half never works, because of the ups and downs in life, because of challenges, and because we are all human at the end of the day. So if we expect that, yes, that half and half will always come, will never happen. What we really need to strive towards is the wholesome, the whole individual and the whole individual coming together. Now, that doesn't mean there is no interdependence. I'm not at all saying that it has to be complete independent existence of two individuals in any setup. It never works. What I'm trying to aim at is this: there needs to be certain phases in your life when you need to start focusing on maximum independence as a male, as a female, as a child, as a parent. We need to give each other that small doses of independence. Why do I say that? When you have that dose of independence, you begin to appreciate and actually not only understand the other person's struggle and the effort it takes to do something, but also it makes you kind of also understand what it takes to kind of then start wanting to delegate and contribute at some point. So I think when we say that everybody doing their bit will never happen, because at times you'll be the one contributing 80%, the other person 20. And I know, like, let's be again practical and real. Maybe you giving your 80 will not always ensure that the other side is giving you the 80 when you need it. So what is my definition then at the end of the day when I say superwoman? I think what we expect a superwoman to be is to do it all, to have it all, to be it all, and to have a say in it all. That's I think the expectation that we have at the end of the day when we say it's a superwoman. So that is never going to happen, because you can't have it all, you can't do it all, you can't be it all. That doesn't happen. So what's the solution then? I think we need to start understanding that as a woman, you will have to identify, we have to identify certain core area of expertise. Like, what are the things that we are good at? And especially since we are talking of jobs for her, let's focus on the professional part here. Because I understand, you want to start a career, you want to have like those that, start at fulfilling your dreams, having that big desire, and that big goal that you want to achieve. So the way to start it is to really understand where your core expertise lies. And when you start understanding that core expertise, you kind of start focusing on something first rather than wanting to do it all. So let me give you an example. Like, usually if you kind of attend a good seminar or workshop on fulfilling your dreams, you will want to go back to the to-do list or the checklist that you have for your life and say, these are the things I want to achieve in life, and therefore I have to tick it all. Or which one do I start with first? And you are like, thinking this is the bigger dream I have, and therefore I should go for it first. But it never starts really that way, because that will lead to a lot of failure very fast. The best way to start is to look at what the smallest thing and what the easiest thing, achievable thing is. Because once you start with the most easily achievable thing, the simpler thing, and when you achieve it, when you get the success, it gives you kind of that edge and that kind of momentum to start developing, that, okay, I am good, I'm getting good at this, let me get good at this. So you kind of want to get one small achievement will give you more energy and effort and focus to go on the second one. So the next question is from Saradindu, who says, I'm working from home and I'm a content writer. I'm planning to join a full-time job. Please guide me how to balance both the professional and the personal life. Great. I'm so happy to hear that you are transitioning from a part-time to a full-time job as a content writer. Now, before I get into the balancing part of it, let me just give you a few suggestions on the content writer part. Because a lot of times what happens is, in this whole race of lot of content writers, especially content writing comes very easily to a woman because of several reasons. Like, it's something you can do from home at your free time. And we see, like, creative writing or arts or authors. I mean, these are things which come very easily to a woman because it's easier to balance somewhat. I know it's not so easy, but let's be practical and think, yes, it is relatively easy. So in that case, what happens is, we think that, okay, we're just going to focus our time on getting the content right. What I would suggest is, while you are looking at your other roles, so let's say if you are somebody at home doing the household work, also doing several other, like playing different roles in different relationships, what I would encourage you to do is start identifying those as areas from where you can inspiration, where you can build a skill and expertise from. And then when you start enjoying those different roles and different skills, it adds innovation and uniqueness to your content writing bit, because it affects the style that you have. Also, if you are interested in multiple other domains besides content writing, you could go for various other things and also play some, like, part in those things. Like, if you're, like, let's say, a photographer and you enjoy photography, go for photography. Don't go for the perfect camera if you don't have it immediately. That'll come eventually when you have the capital and the resources. But go for those times when you can just go in places which you enjoy looking at or being in and take pictures. So what will happen is, whatever inspiration you draw from there, the kind of skill that you pick up, the kind of things that you see, the experience that you go through will affect the kind of content writing that you have. So in this entire process, what happens, it could also be, let me give you another example. So for instance, you have a little child who you are taking to a park, and while the child is playing, maybe you're jogging or you are just taking pictures. What happens is, it becomes a balancing act. You're taking care of the child, you're taking care of your health, at the same time clicking that picture, going back and writing a good content, for the audience that you are serving at the end of the day. So that will give you a, like, a happiness factor at work and at personal life, because the child is happy that you took the child to the park. And similar things, like, this is just one example that I gave. Now, Divya asks, be approachable, not accessible. That is a wonderful point. Working moms have to understand that this difference so that they can survive the guilt. Exactly. Divya, you've really made the right point here, because approachable and accessible are two different things. Like, see, the reason we have that guilt factor as a woman, no matter how much you do for the family, you will always end up feeling, after 40 years of serving the family or at job, that I was not appreciated. I was not really given the due respect or the appreciation or being valued and rewarded or given the promotion like a male counterpart. So what happens is that part where we really need to understand that, yes, we need to have that time. Our husbands might be like, oh, you don't have time for me, why didn't you pick up the call? Yes, you leave a message, leave that. See, when husbands are busy, when fathers are busy, they may not answer your call. So at times it's okay. I mean, don't be totally cut off from the family scene, but make sure that as soon as you get the network, or as soon as possible, respond through some medium so that they're not worried. But at the same time, be very kind and polite, and don't respond, when they are heated up at that very moment. So yeah, going on to Divya's question only, that I'm a freelancer working from home. I have a lovely and supporting family. However, I'm micromanaging the household chores most of the time, which irritates my family. How do I avoid this? So, very good question again, Divya. And I mean, I'm so happy the kind of questions that you're asking. So, micromanaging. Now, let's get to that aspect of micromanaging. Now, I gave you the example of the park scene where you are going to a park and managing everything. Now, if you mean household chores, now I'll break this down. So how do I do it? There are times when I feel that, I don't want to do household chores because, I have something lined up in the day and I want to kind of finish that first and get into this. So there are two things here. Firstly, when you think, you see, as a career woman, that guilt, as we just spoke about, is going to be there, that if you're not going to spend enough time on your work or on, so me time versus work time versus family time versus, and that family time could also include part of the housework time. So what I think, me time can somewhat be combined with the household time. Let's say you're cleaning up something, washing the dishes, or just kind of, going and just looking at things, or just cooking something. Best thing to do is plug in something inside and, hear something, listen to some music which refreshes you on with one earplug, and the other one can be down. So what happens is, while you're doing that, you are also having some me time. That's the juggling act here, but it really pays off, because even if you're listening, you're kind of focused on both things, and that'll take some practice, but you just have to start doing it. So what will happen is, even if people are saying, you are listening from one, you're listening to the instruction, getting back on the focus, and focus on the cooking act here or the cleaning act here. And at the same time, that good motivational talk, the tone of it, the good music kind of keeps your spirits high, and not focus on, every little thing that, other people are saying. And it may not just matter, they may really love you, but at the end of the day, they're humans, and they just want to kind of make sure that you're getting the food right and things right. They might say, why are you having this on? Focus on one thing at a time. But trust me, if you're just cooking and listening to all that, it'll kind of get you more and more irritated and take away your peace of mind. So that time of, productive listening, music kind of heals you, soothes you a little bit. So that's the one. And secondly, micromanaging also means, having a kind of a structure to your, a flexible and yet a structured schedule for your day. So what happens is, let's say you had this on the to-do list, but you kind of don't make it to that list, and you have to do something else, which is fine. But at the same time, you have to make sure wherever it's getting monetized, you have to focus on that. Next, it's hard to juggle career and family. How to solve the have it all issue? Right, that's a very, very good point, like how to solve the have it all issue. So here I again think, it's more about having that, again, that expectation of, I want to have it all, I want to get it right. Trust me, you need to stop having that expectation so verbal, as in always saying, I want to have this and this. So I'll give you an example from my own life, where I used to keep thinking that I need to be that, perfect woman, where I get all my relationships right, get work success, at the same time, always having that, what do I say, that expectation of even looking the best and having it all. So I think your minimalistic life, if you can check out, how to become a minimalist, there are two co-founders in this. There's a TED talk also. If you can check out, minimalism has played a huge role in making me come to a point where I am now able to juggle multiple roles and get it right at the same time. Not completely right, but yeah, somewhat right. And I'm kind of not struggling with stress so much right now, because I'm kind of focused on the minimalistic part as much as possible. Now, Vandana asks, hi Madiha, how practical is it to be a superwoman, juggling all the work at family and work and sustaining it for a long time? Is it really possible in the long run, especially once woman becomes a mom and for whom family is a priority? She believes that only she can uniquely nurture her children, while at work one can find another capable person. Many women either quit or take a long break from work due to this reason. What are the practical tips that you can suggest to sustain for being a superwoman, to juggle both family and work? What a brilliant question, Vandana. So I'll answer it in several parts. Where your first question is, yes, it's not practical. Let me again go back to the definition of a superwoman. Superwoman is not someone who can do it all, have it all, be it all, and say it all. It's more about really focusing, super focus on what your purpose of life is and what are your priorities. Now, priorities, I completely understand. Once you are a mom, and especially the first few years are very critical and very important for the child. And I know they say as a quote that the best investment you can make is raising a good child. That is part of the story, yes. But at the end of the day, I also know that, those 4 5 years you might contribute to raising a great child. But then chances are that you will not be able to like very happily say, yeah, I did everything for the child and I did everything at work. So three suggestions I would give you. The first one being, the skill set that you acquire as a result of being a mom and raising a child, see how you can combine it with your profession. So for instance, let me give you a very simple example. If you're a woman in technology, let's take that scene because it's difficult mostly to connect it with uh, early childhood and coding and a part like that. So here I'm driving at the point where try to combine a skill and acquire a new skill through some online virtual, as in virtual, or a real practical live platform where you are teaching a child something and at the same time earning and acquiring a skill. So I'll give you an example. I've seen women who are good in technology, who are from a technology background, engineering background, and they want to keep earning and also focus on the child while being at home. So in that case, I have seen them transition towards one of the white hat junior like platforms, which I'm also a part of. I've seen women transition to working in those places because it gives them a steady source of income. It gives them the assurance of having a minimum number of students, at the same time, teaching their own child coding and also being, utilizing their skill set in technology going forward. Secondly, I would suggest, like, if you're into, say, something like a content writing or something, why not come up with unique struggles, either do a live or a Facebook or a YouTube something, and talking about your challenges in that particular field and having a support group alongside that, because that might generate a new business idea when you are talking and sharing with other people. Thirdly, focus on making the child do something, because trust me, at times your greatest leadership and skill set is tested when you can transfer it to another child or another individual and making them practice the same. So in small ways, let's say you're good at reflection, writing, photography. As the child is growing, create moments where you start enjoying that time with that particular individual, and also transferring a skill in the least possible way, in the minimum possible way, to another individual, a child, depending on what the age group is. So next question, how can we overcome constant juggling? Everyday pressures keeps us away from our personal goals. That's a good question, Asha. So we need to first understand that a lot of times people say don't juggle, take one thing at a time. That's not going to happen. Honestly, that doesn't just happen. It's so difficult. So what we need to understand is to stop real focusing on the part is how to overcome the constant juggling. The juggling is always going to be there. What we can change is where our eyes are. So instead of thinking, okay, I've got to manage 8 balls or 5 balls or 3 balls, what important thing we can focus on is to get to enjoy, first of all, the act of juggling. That it's something which is going to give you relaxation and kind of pay off in the long run. I know it's hard to really understand this immediately, but yeah, as you start doing, you see yourself growing as a result of doing multiple things and getting better at it. Secondly, so first thing is to stop thinking that you won't have the juggling act or you can't prevent it. It's going to be there no matter what you want. Secondly, you need to start understanding that the juggling act where the eyes are. Also, you need to start understanding on improving your basic understanding and concepts of everything that you are doing. Why are you doing it? Because I know, at the end of the day, even if you're raising a child and you are kind of frustrated with the demands that are raised by the child and you not being able to meet it, so what happens is the more you get clearer on why you are happy being a mother and why you want to raise this child and how you want to raise this child, the more the focus goes on the why, the effort gets like you're able to put more effort because you kind of know why you started it all. So next is Let me see the question. Sonal asks, I'm a primary teacher in a private school, and we all know how demanding teachers' careers are. I completely agree. And even though I have to literally tear myself apart to make work and life happen all the time, people around me are never happy. My question is, how far does one go to balance it all? It's exhausting. I completely understand, Sonal. So the question is that in the teaching profession, and I completely understand, especially, if you're working in a school setup in a primary school, there are two basic challenges. The first challenge being, working with kids, and really it gets exhausting because you have to really make sure they're all doing it and doing it well and all of that. At the same time, I think there's also the other challenge of the after school part, where you have the corrections to do, which is not so much in the middle or the high school. So I would suggest here that if possible, because see, primary school, the pressure is relatively less and sticking to a curriculum is also relatively less. Modernize that teaching concept. So get more real with skill rather than writing. I understand writing is equally important, but we kind of need to balance it. So let's say, have peer learning in place, because that makes you less exhausted. How do you do it? There are a lot of resources on Pinterest and a lot of other Twitter resources also. If you want, you can connect with me after the session and I can share a few links of those kind of resources. Peer learning makes it less exhaustive, especially after class 1, when you can make them into groups and make things happen. Also get more focused on the outcome part, because with teaching, what I've seen is teachers usually get very, very exhausted with teaching because of the way the demands are from the workplace. But at the end of the day, you have to kind of stand up at workplace itself and make sure, because you will have teachers complaints from parents, complaints from the authorities saying you need to do more, because children, no matter how much you put into them and into their learning, you might not get results if you're following the typical mechanism. And there is a lot of freedom and possibility of exploration in early childhood. So if you kind of improve your methods and include peer learning at an early age in small doses, it makes your work less exhausting and correction becomes easier later on. Also, when you say that yes, there will be times when you will have that expectation of not giving enough time or people never being happy, trust me, people will never be happy. Let's look at all the famous saints and all the famous great people in the past. They could not make all the people happy. Who are we, the common average crowd of people who will get it all right and make everyone happy? Trust me, at the end of the day, it's money who makes everyone happy. Let's be very practical. Money is not bad, but the fact that you get some source of income at home, you're able to meet your bills, and you stop depending too much on other people for your financial aspects of life, that gives you a different kind of confidence and freedom. Because then at the end of the day, you have to send your child to school and you need money for it. You need to start paying your bills at home, and therefore you need money for it. So in the long run, when you're earning well, there comes a time when all these complaints and all the people not happy kind of thing goes away. Now, the next question is, let me see. We've got another question from Kartiki, who asked, what can be the work-life balance tips for women professionals? So here, my suggestions are along two lines. The first one being, identify your strength and your SWOT. So strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. When you partner for work, or you get into workforce, or you find the right kind of people to work with or collaborate with, try to identify people from complementary skill sets or resources that you don't have. Because in the long run, what will happen is it'll stop both of you going and starting everything from scratch. Saves you a lot of struggle. And of course, when you're collaborating, there's always this threat of she'll copy me, he'll copy me, I'm what, and every time you may not have the money to get your stuff trademark and copyright and all of that. So in that case, what happens is build credibility. How do you build credibility? Knowing your basics and foundation really strong. So whatever work you're doing, try identifying various ways to make to build your expertise in that particular domain. So let's say if you are into let's say teaching maybe, or language, like effective language skills in people. Try to test it out with the low income group, with the underprivileged children, with underprivileged women, with the high income women, with the middle income women, online, physical, in small ways, one session, or just in a social gathering. So what happens is, when you are testing your skill in various capacities, you get good at the ground stuff. When your ground stuff and ground experience is solid, you become unbeatable. People can't compete with you because you're so good at this. You're so confident in whatever you're doing, and that skill set gives you credibility over a period of time. And the right kind of collaboration is possible, because then you don't feel threatened, because you know where your core expertise lies. Now, the next question is from Akshata, who asks, I'm an IT professional with 8 years break, want to do something related to IT, but not ready for full time. Can you suggest where I can start to help me maintain a work-life balance? I want to be there for my child and also earn. Brilliant. As I already mentioned in previous response, that the best way to get started is, if you have a very little child, like as in she's or he is quite young, the best way to start it is some online work. So as I suggested, I've seen some kind of good work happening at White Hat Junior, not because I'm part of it, but I've seen some success stories of women earning well, and also at the same time being able to do justice to the work-life balance and taking care of children at home. So I've had one teacher mentoring session where one of the teachers who joined said, I had a little child at home. The child was crying, so she was on mute, and she was asking questions through the chat rather than verbal. So she was not only teaching at home, but also attending a teacher mentoring session and finding a way to do it because she wanted to do it, like upgrade her skill at the same time, get the best out of it so that she can earn more at the platform. So I would suggest you can check out the White Hat Junior platform of coding for children, and because of your IT experience, you're likely to add value to your own life to even eventually teach your own child coding, and at the same time, taking your resume to the next level. And maybe after a few years, if you feel that when your child is like capable enough, and you can leave the child alone with someone, and then you can go back to that workforce, because see, that'll add to your resume. You can go back and say, I didn't leave IT, and I combined whatever my skill set of IT was, taking care of my child and also adding skill set to my child. So that becomes, I hope that answers the question. Let's go on to the next question, which is from Lata, who asks, what is the key to finding harmony between the conflicting demands of family, friends, and career? Well, something similar would be the answer, but I will repeat it nevertheless. That see, again, when we speak of family, when we speak of career, when we speak of your own life, the solution lies on that last and the ultimate part of financial independence and growth. Because I'll tell you, when it comes to your mean time, you want to spend it on a vacation or go somewhere or do something, you will eventually have to kind of focus on, how do I have enough money to go on a solo trip or buy this thing for me? You need money at the end of the day. So you need to focus on financial independence. That's the me time question. Second, family. Which family member, tell me, at home won't like it if you're throwing a surprise party for them? Or everybody likes to show that off on Facebook and social media and talk about it and brag about it. Oh, you know what, my daughter-in-law did this to me, my daughter did this to me, and they like boasting about it, they like talking about it. So that's the negative part of it. But if you have your intentions right, and if you're earning to be able to spend it on your family, give quality stuff to your family, to give them good surprises, even to your own husband. Trust me, as females, we've always been raised with that idea of a husband will give me this big grand party or big grand surprise and surprise me. Isn't it time that we become females who can also give that big surprise to our husbands and our loved ones, so that it kind of, gives us more respect at the end of the day? And husbands will start cracking and stop cracking those jokes of women being like, treating them like an ATM. And of course, that's the reality, that you stop judging a man and looking at a man as only the ATM and the money provider, and you start loving them for who they are more than always meeting your financial demands. So I think that answers the question and actually looks at it from a very practical perspective. Again, I would just like to focus on something called branding. Like a lot of times, we struggle in work or at life because we don't have a branding right. Like I'll give you an example by giving, like, from my own life, that a lot of times we feel that, branding is all about wearing those big brands, and we at work, want to pull off a great brand by, like, show off ourselves as a great brand or a great professional by wearing that perfect coat, or always having that lipstick on at the right, in the right way, the makeup in the right places, and wearing the right heels, and walking your talk, like walk better than and talk better rather than walking your talk. So what happens here in this case is, a lot of times we struggle with the branding concept, where we feel if we have the right clothes on and the right kind of style, we will be kind of, appreciated and accepted in certain circles and get the right promotion, because that image consultancy, not to have nothing against image consultancy and soft skill training, but let's get it right, that a lot of professionals, women professionals whom I've seen, they're more focused on getting the outer right rather than inner one, which is why they sometimes struggle to get their income right, their impact right, and their influence and innovation in place. So we focus a lot on branding from the external side. So here I'll add the minimalistic part, where again, minimalistic lifestyle really helps. Secondly, branding. So you need to get your branding as a professional and as a person right, because like, unless you get your branding right in terms of what is your core expertise, what are you adding to your home, to your external environment, and at the same time, letting people know, like, what will people approach you for, why will people come to you. And here I would like to kind of, share my own story, where people said I was doing so many things, and how do I kind of like, um like how do I kind of like, people, like, especially some of my mentors and experts, like, who are there in different fields, they would question me, you are doing so much, look at your Facebook profile, look at your website, look at what you talk about, you are everywhere, you take pictures with all kinds of people. But I mean, I'm not confused at the end of the day, because even if I'm doing 100 things, I'm pretty sure that, I'm getting good at it, I'm getting credibility, I've built my credibility. So I'll just go back before I answer any of the questions here. Let me get back into a little bit of my story here. Like, I was not that person who got, or whoever thought that I will leave my house and go for another city because I want freedom, or I don't want all this, like, nagging from family, parents, blah, 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 all of that, even if it was difficult at the beginning of the journey. Because what I asked myself, and I said this in my Coca-Cola Youth Forum speech as well, that a lot of times we have to be really practical. If you're a good leader, if you want a great legacy for yourself, you have to think about scalability and replicability. So I asked myself, is it practical if I quit everything and go on this kind of a sannyas literally, and do whatever I want to do and have all the freedom? Will majority of the women and men be able to copy this, and have a life for themselves and have a success story to talk about? Me becoming a success story alone is not going to be enough for a greater India. So I realized I had to be practical. Okay, so the point was, I could not go out, because if I go out, then majority other women may not have the loans or the financial resources or the ability to fight it out to be able to go out. So what was my next refuge? Stay in the system and change it. Difficult, I know, very difficult. So I figured out 2-3 ways. First of all, my intentions and the purpose. The reason I was wanting to fight this battle of having a financial independence, having a career, being a professional woman, was more along the lines of having, that focus of, okay, my brother, he's going to be like, in X number of years, maybe 30 plus years, he's going to be married, and he's going to get married to a woman. Is my family ready to be that family of dreams for that woman who my brother will marry? That was my focus. I said, no, they're not ready. So today, if I don't take the first step, what happens is that girl is going to suffer as a result of me not being bold enough and brave enough. I don't know who that girl is. But the point is that bigger focus was there in mind. So then I told myself, okay, I'm in this system. If I become the woman of my dreams, my family becomes the family for my dreams first. It becomes easier for another woman in the times to come. So then when I took those baby steps, I did not rebel. I did not fight unnecessarily. What I wanted to fight on really was the major battles inside, where I wanted to get the clarity right that yes, I'm going to fight my battles, but I'm not going to be rude to them all the time. I'll be the first one to say sorry if I have to just fight for this moment and argue as much as possible. Because if you, or even if don't say sorry, take the first step towards smiling and doing something good for the family, because that makes things easier. It makes you, like, eventually you get blessings, because you've been the better person at the end of the day. So this is one thing. The next question is, let's see. Okay, so the next bit is again like just the journey part a little more. So you kind of need to juggle it, and you need to understand you'll have to juggle it all. There'll be times when people will keep telling you, what are you doing, you know, I need this from you. Just tell them you need to wait. You'll be a little impolite, rude at times, but the main point is that rudeness is not going to hurt a lot, because when you kind of become a success story, I think yeah, so if at the end of the day you're a success story, you know, all the mouths will be shut, all the criticism is like useless at the end of the day. So you need to focus on the bigger picture. Now the next question is from, work from home is not easy than a full-time job. I think it's a very, very good question. When you say that, so let's talk about that. Like when we say that the work from home versus the, I'll talk about this in detail so that we get more clarity. The work from home versus the freelancer versus the part-time versus the contract base versus the full-time job. I think there's a huge confusion about which one to start with. I'll talk about that, and I'll also talk about like the question specifically which is asked. So yeah, so let's answer that. So when it comes to freelance, I think the best way to start it is freelance, because freelance prevents you from getting binded by rules and binded by structure, which initially, whether you are a work from home or a woman into multiple things, or who is not sure of where to start, because when you restart, there's a lot of confusion and a chaos of whether to start or not and what to start with. So when you get into a freelancer capacity, you are kind of legally safe. Like when I say legally and officially safe, I mean you're free to explore multiple options and not bound somehow. So that becomes easy, you know, because then you are like, okay, I can also do this, I can also do this, and there's no binding. And of course you'll have lesser money at that point of time, but it really matters because the work, you know, as soon as you do this work, this work, this work, and try everything for 5 days, this is 4 days project, this is 10 days project, this is 15 days, this is 2 months, you know, it gives you that flexibility to really understand what you want at the end of the day rather than what is perfect for you. Because yes, you know, maybe 5 years down back you must have thought you were good at this and you wanted to do this, but as of this moment, you know, because you've grown, because you've got multiple things to do and manage, and also priorities and expectations, that very moment you begin to realize, okay, theek hai, freelance if I'm doing in multiple things, I begin to realize I'm enjoying this more and not so much of this. So risk is less when you start with something like a freelancer. Then when you go on to the next level of, let's say, part-time, so again I would go into contract before I go into part-time. So contract based, what happens is you slowly get into the structure part. What do I mean by that? You get into a structured part, meaning you start realizing that, all right, you know, I'm kind of totally, I was free and I was free to do whatever I want whenever I want. Now I've got into a structure of a contract where I have to kind of either abide by terms of not the copyright or being loyal or doing something at a certain time. All of those things might just come, but the main point is you start to begin and like, you know, understanding the structure to a workplace. So contract work might not be easy to get. Now here is where Jobs for Her and platforms like that come into picture, where you start of kind posting about it and they will find the kind of, you know, structure, and also like get one-on-one guidance from the mentors who are there. So many of us are there on the platform. So when you kind of get that picture clear that, okay, if I get into a contract based work, what are the risks? You know, there might be some legal women from legal background at the forum itself, so you can check out with them and kind of see that, or your own legal friend circle or the lawyer, and kind of figure out what are the maximum risks that you would get into. Take that risk, a calculated risk perhaps, where you start to understand that, all right, if I'm going to take this risk, what is the scope in future? You might be bound. Now when you go for contract, don't go for a very long term contract, because then what if your mind changes? What if you're let's say if you are at an early stage of life where you have a little child and 2-3 years down the line you want to move out of it? So take the smallest contract possible to get into structure, as well as to get into the clarity of what is it that happens when you have more structured work rather than a complete freelance work. Then you slowly move into the next phase, which is the part-time work. So part-time work, again, what happens is here the salary becomes little more defined. where you are like, okay, I'm going to work X number of hours per week, per day, or per month, and therefore I'm going to get this much of salary. So that gives you two aspects. It gives you the professional growth. At the same time, it gives you the understanding of like how much time to give and how to give it, like what will be the outcome as a result of it, and also the financial aspect of it. Because part time, you realize, okay, in this much of hours I'm getting this much of money, so per hour this is my rate as of now. Is it doing justice to the skill set that I have, or do I want to grow from here? If I want to grow from here, say 500 rupees per hour to say 800 or 900 per hour of work, then what is it that I need to do? How do I build my brand bigger so that I get more income per hour? That becomes part time.